So let's talk about your tax refund. The White House just dropped a communication about the 2026 tax season, and honestly, the claims they're making are pretty big. We're going to unpack all of it. So here's the burning question. Is your tax refund actually getting bigger this year? I mean, that's the hope, right? Well, a brand new press release from the White House is really fanning the flames on that idea. And here's the headline from that release. The White House is projecting the largest tax refund season in U.S. history for 2026. Yeah, you heard that right. Not just big, but the biggest ever. So you got to ask, what's backing up a claim like that? Well, according to the White House, the engine behind all of this is something called the Working Families Tax Cuts Act. That's the legislation they're pointing to as the big driver for these potential refund increases. Okay, so Section 1. What are the experts saying? Look, you can't make a claim that big without some backup, right? So the White House communication actually cites a bunch of financial experts and media outlets to support its case. Let's take a look at what they present. Okay, first up, they point to a quote from USA Today, which is citing an economist from ING. And get this, they're talking about refunds being as much as 30% more. A 30% jump. That's a lot. And that's just the starting point. Then they bring up a report from CBS News, which cites Oxford Economics. And this one isn't just about individual refunds, it's about the total picture. They're talking about a really hefty amount in total taxpayer savings. We're talking billions. And here's the number they pull from that CBS report, $50 billion. That's additional savings for taxpayers through bigger tax refunds. I mean, $50 billion, that's a number that really makes you stop and think. The communication also highlights the Wall Street Journal. They cite a study from the investment firm Piper Sandler, and this one gets right down to the individual level. They're projecting that refunds, on average, could come in $1,000 higher than usual. Now, that's a number most people can really feel. And this quote from Business Insider, citing the Tax Foundation, really drills down on the specifics. They estimate the average tax refund will grow from $3,052 in 2024 all the way up to $3,800 for the 2025 tax year. You can really see the jump there. And finally, to kind of round out the expert commentary, they point to CNBC. Here, an economist from Morgan Stanley gives a slightly different take, expecting the changes to increase refunds by about 15 to 20% on average. So still a pretty substantial increase, even at the lower end of that range. Okay, so that's what the experts are saying. Now for Section 2. Let's get inside the Tax Act itself. What's actually in this legislation that's supposed to be causing these bigger refunds? Let's peel back the layers. So the document lists several key provisions. It talks about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. And on top of that, a deduction for auto loan interest on cars that are made in America. You can see how these are aimed at pretty broad tax relief. All right, so that's the policy. Now let's get to Section 3, the bottom line for taxpayers. When you put all this together, what does the White House claim it all adds up to for the average person? The first big number they highlight is this, $1,000. That's the figure they're floating for the average refund increase per taxpayer. For a lot of families, $1,000 is a really big deal. And this bar chart really visualizes that growth we talked about earlier from the Tax Foundation. Look at that jump. It shows the average refund going from about $3,052 in 2024 up to a projected $3,800 for 2025. Seeing it laid out like that really puts the increase into perspective. But it's not just about the refund itself. The White House projects that when you look at the whole picture, the average taxpayer is expected to see nearly $4,000 in total tax savings in 2026. So the refund is just one piece of that bigger pie. So, to wrap this up, the information presented in the press release really leaves us with a final question. If there is a widespread increase in tax refunds like this, what could that mean for the broader economy? What happens when that much money flows back to taxpayers? It's a really interesting thought to end on, and it definitely makes the 2026 tax season one to keep an eye on.